Hey everyone, and welcome back to Country Music Made Me. Thank you so much for joining us once again. As always, please be sure to like, share, follow, subscribe to us wherever you are listening. You can leave us a review, a rating, tell your friends, your family, your neighbors to come on over and have a listen. That support is huge. Today we are joined by Casi Joy. Now, throughout her life, music has been the focus. It started with country music when she was young. It switched to pop for a couple of years, and then in high school, it was focused on rock. But following graduation from university, it switched back to country music. And in 2015, she made the move to Nashville to pursue it as a career. In 2017, she had a big break while competing on The Voice. And ever since then, she has been building and recording music and touring and doing whatever she can to build up a career in country music. Now, we had a fun time talking about the journey and the family that has supported her all the way along. So please enjoy our conversation with Casi Joy. Home. Which home are you in? Because you currently are on the road in a home, are you not?
That is a great question. Yeah, we do live full time out of our bus, but right now we winterized it because we didn't have any gigs where we thought we were going to be utilizing it with gas prices and everything. You know, sometimes we're like, let's not fill a 150-gallon tank. And so we have been staying with my parents in Kansas City whenever we're in this area. And then we've got friends in Nashville that we can stay with if we don't want to bring the bus with us. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, great question.
Yeah, like you recently sold your home. You did have a home in Nashville that you were renting out while you were living in the RV. You recently sold that house. So what feelings were attached to that? Was it excitement because you no longer had that backup, or was there fear because you no longer had that backup?
It was, I think, more excitement, a lot of shock because it was just, it was really exciting to get to just sell something and then not have to immediately throw it back into something else. So we got really lucky there. And I honestly really love the bus lifestyle. I love the kind of smaller quarters. It gets messy fast, but it gets clean just as quick.
Right.
And, it's just a really fun, totally different lifestyle where it's like, just put wheels on your home and take it wherever you want. And now home is where you park it.
And you bought the RV in 2019, and then of course 2020 happened. So during 2020, was it a blessing to have that and to be mobile on the road?
It really was. At first, when lockdown started, that was right when we had purchased the bus and got rid of our home. And, it probably would have been better to do lockdown in a home that we had just had. Once lockdown kind of lifted, we had the ability to take the bus to campgrounds, which was one of the only, venues able to have socially distanced outdoor concerts. And so we had, kind of found a loophole and got super lucky where we stayed really busy during 2020 somehow, thanks to the bus.
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome. And now going into Christmas, going into the holidays, I believe that heading to your grandma Phyllis's home in Minnesota is usually a tradition. Are you going to be doing that this year?
Yes, absolutely. Yep. I wouldn't miss that. We didn't get to go last year until March. We didn't get to celebrate Christmas with the whole family until March, which was super weird. But this year, I think we're on schedule. Fingers crossed.
That's awesome. And I know family means a lot to you. I mean, 9-hour drive from Kansas City to Nashville and the 3 or 4 hour flight. I think you know those two things pretty well. How many times have you done the drive? Do you know?
I don't even know how to guess that number. Before my husband was able to move to Nashville with me, who's now my manager and tour manager and, photographer and bus driver and all the things. He ran sound for me at my show last night. But before he got to move, I was making the drive like almost every other week by myself with my dog, Danny, who's here, but he is very camera shy. So I made the drive by myself a ton of times. And now, Brian and I are making 10-hour drives every weekend, if not twice a week. We just got in from Chicago about 30 minutes ago, ran in and threw on a hat, and here I am.
That's awesome. And with him being your manager and sort of jack of all trades, he sort of moved into that, I believe, in around 2016. He left his day job, whatever he was doing, to jump in with you into the music. Now, at the time, how scary was that? But now that it's been 4 or 5 years, how much of a blessing has it been?
Yeah. It's been a total blessing for me just to have his talents. That he comes from a sales background, and he's just so charismatic and just the best guy ever. Everybody loves Bry. And that translated over perfectly to the music industry, and his just ability to learn anything and wear any hat that he needs to has been incredible. I think it was definitely terrifying for him, to say the least, in the beginning, because he comes from a corporate day job with, benefits and a 401k and, healthcare. And then so to come and work with me, one, I'm crazy, and I'm just so spastic, and, I'm the creative side, and that's not his expertise. So I think it was definitely scary for him to get into, but I think he's doing an incredible job.
But that must be pretty complementary, with you having that very artistic side and then him coming from more of the business side. You must complement each other very well in helping to drive your career forward.
I think for sure. He keeps my feet on the ground when I'm just, floating in outer space, daydreaming and stuff. And he just deals with the business side of everything so much better than me. And his sales spiel is great. I don't like to talk myself up ever. So it's just been, and mainly just to be able to spend all this time with him. A lot of people would, think that's crazy, but we just work so well together, and just to have him by my side for every single step of this journey has been just so special.
That's awesome. And I wanted to talk about some of the other family members who have been by your side for this journey as well, and what they've meant for you. And we talked about going to your grandma Phyllis's for Christmas. Now, what has she meant to your journey? I saw a clip where one Christmas she was playing the piano and you were singing along. So has she been sort of an influence for that piano playing since you were young?
Yeah. So I'm really close with my grandparents. And so my grandma Phyllis is my mom's mom, and that whole side of the family is from Minnesota, so that's why we go up there. But I grew up just listening to her playing piano, her and my Aunt Joy, where I get the Joy in my name from.
I was going to ask you about her next. So
her and my Aunt Joy and my cousin Amber, they all play piano. They read sheet music and know theory and all that, and I do not. I'm just by ear.
Okay.
But nobody was ever wanting to be a performer, or a singer beyond being in the church choir. And but I think I definitely got kind of an ear for hearing acoustic instruments from them.
And talk about your Aunt Joy as well, who you're named after. I saw a post that you had on Instagram just talking about her strength and what she's gone through in her life and what she's been able to battle through, and talk about her and the inspiration that she is as a woman, not just on the musical side.
Yes. She's an incredibly strong woman. She is my mom's brother, so my Uncle Gary's wife, and we unfortunately lost him to cancer a few years back. And just the way that she handled that and just kept the family together and stayed so strong, for everybody else when she didn't need to, was just really inspiring. And she's just always such a super positive person. She definitely lives up to her name. And so I, maybe subconsciously like that got, passed down to me, but
That's awesome. And of course, your Uncle Gary isn't someone else I wanted to talk about. He passed away and you had written a song back in 2016 for him. I believe, what was his nickname? Cacti? Was that it?
Cacti.
And so talk about him and what he meant to you before he passed away.
Yeah, so that was my mom's brother, Uncle Gary. He was, you know what? It's so funny that you ask about. I was just thinking about him the other day because we always made fun of him. He wore the dorkiest outfits. He would do Crocs and socks and plaid with stripes and just didn't give two hoots about matching. And I've started to notice, I think I'm kind of following in his foot. I mean, okay, for real, I'm wearing purple pajama pants
Nice.
with a cheap sweater. But yeah, he was just definitely a wholeheartedly himself, through and through. And honestly, he reminds me a lot of Brian, my husband.
That's awesome. And now your parents, the two most important people who have supported you throughout this entire journey. At the beginning, when you were younger, what type of people were they? Were they musical people that sort of guided you in this direction? Or did you sort of pick up on music yourself when you were younger?
Yeah, so my parents are absolutely not musical. My mom can actually harmonize a little bit. But yeah, they would say like, they would rather, be torched than have to be on a stage and perform. But I was about 5 years old and I found this cassette of Angels Among Us by Alabama. And it was the very first cassette that I ever found where on the back there was an instrumental version. And I was like, well, what's that mean? And so I put it in there and I'm like, there's no singing. That's for me to do. And I, started practicing this obsessively in the mirror in my bedroom and, brought this to my parents. I'm like, there's a talent show in Smithville, my hometown, right outside of Kansas City. And I'm like, I got to perform. And they're like, you have to what? You don't sing. We don't sing. What are you talking about? And honestly, it was not great. We look back and watch that performance and die laughing. Like it was not good. So I don't feel like I was naturally like gifted with a voice or musical ability. I just loved the stage. I loved music. I loved the way it made me feel to perform it and to connect with other people through it. And so I think I just, was like, well, I better work my butt off to be able to do this. And you can't sound like what I sounded like to do that.
And so at the age of 10, you started to tour the Midwest in the country Opry circuit. Now, at that point, like you say, the singing didn't necessarily come natural. So when you were 10 and started to perform within that circuit, was it more about the performance for you than it was necessarily about the vocals?
Yes, and that is something else that my mom had a big hand in was my performance. We had moves for everything. We had this studio set up downstairs, which was just burlap with my karaoke CDs on the wall, and we called that the studio. But we'd go down there every night and I would, practice my songs for her and we'd be practicing the moves and they were so stupid. Like I was doing the electric slide. But yeah, so the performance aspect was always like, if you're not going to sound great, at least look great. And I guess, yeah, the singing came after.
That's awesome. And so with your drive that you had back then, I mean, there's some parents who are like, I want my kid to do this, so I'm going to push them towards it. But as far as you were concerned, was it more your passion that was driving this and just your parents saying, okay, if you have this passion, then we'll totally support you?
It definitely started out as mine. And, just begging my parents to do all these weird little things I would find on the newspaper back in those days. And, but it's, over the years, it became our passion. My parents would find me opportunities and every single thing, even if it was a cruise ship, it was you got to go do karaoke, and we're bringing my own discs because, it's got to be my certain songs, because you never know who's in the audience. And it didn't matter if it was in McDonald's, like they pushed me, but they knew that it was because I wanted it so bad. And I am forever grateful for that.
And I saw that around the age of 12, you got a microphone for Christmas, and it was one of those ones that had the songs preloaded onto it that you could sing along to. What did that mean to you and sort of your evolution in the whole performance and singing?
Yes, you did your research. Yeah, that I will never forget, getting that microphone, because that was, the first time I got to graduate from a hairbrush to a real life microphone.
Right.
And big honker thing that had an antenna on it, and it hooks up to the AM radio, and it had this huge book of karaoke songs. And that's when I learned to sing, like Unchained Melody, and I think Cowboy Sweetheart was on there, which was one of the first yodeling songs I ever learned.
Right.
And it just, opened the gates to like me getting to hear my own voice by itself and get to do my own things instead of just following and trying to mimic the artist's voice at that time. So I think that was when I got to really start putting on shows for my family, and I took that thing everywhere.
And so when did the instruments come along for you then? When did you start to sort of learn them and move more into that sort of instrument and singing portion of your career?
Yeah, so I didn't really my parents, I asked them to, put me in piano lessons. I thought I would love that. And I got this really ancient piano teacher who, was like falling asleep during the lessons and trying to teach me like Beethoven, and I'm like snooze fest.
Right.
And so I did that for like a week, quit, and didn't really pick up playing an instrument again until like 2012, when
Okay.
I was in a rock band for a long time, and I was just the lead singer, headbanger. I was writing the melodies and lyrics, but I had a guitarist and the rest of the band to write the music for me, so I never had to play anything. Or and then when the band broke up, don't date the guitar player, when the band broke up, I was like, oh crap, I don't know how to write my own songs by myself. And so I immediately started working on something on piano, and it was on my grandma's piano up in Minnesota on Christmas Day. And my grandma has since now gifted me that piano, which is
awesome.
What this fail on.
That is so cool. And the rock band, I wanted to talk about that because you talk about sort of the country influence growing up and those country songs that you came across and that you found. But then you started a rock band. I believe it was called In Like.
Yeah.
And it seems like you got pretty big. You played Warped Tour at least once. Now, was that sort of a win your way on sort of thing, or how did that come about, playing Warped Tour?
You know what? I'm sure it was some sort of contest. I seriously do not even remember how. I remember when we got the email, and I was at school in high school, and I remember like screaming, I'm playing, because I was such a emo kid back then. Right. And so that was the biggest like dream come true at that time for all of us.
And so you mentioned don't date the guitar player. Was that a band that like you had aspirations of doing more, or was it just sort of a high school fling, sort of something to do in music while you were in high school?
I think at the time I really thought it was going to go somewhere, and I thought that rock was going to be my heart. And I think it had a lot to do with I had been going to the School of Rock before that, because the Radio Disney opportunity, it's a long story, but it ended up turning into the School of Rock. So I went from pop music to rock, and I basically just always did any opportunity that was in front of me. I just kind of tried everything. And in Kansas City, there's not as many musical opportunities as being in like Nashville or something. And so if rock music is the only thing in front of me, I'm going to be a rock star. And so I was wholeheartedly into that for a long time. And it wasn't until that band broke up and I started writing country music again. And, I think that's where my voice just sits. It's where my heart sits. And it's where I can, have the freedom to like really story tell.
Right. And now we saw Cassidy Pope this year sort of bring out her emo side within her country music. Is that something that maybe we could see you doing in the future, is bringing back that rock more to your country music?
Maybe, for sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I kind of can't say no. I feel like little emo and like rock vibes are always going to pop out. I mean, so Senses Fail, my latest single,
Yeah.
there's actually an emo band called Senses Fail that I listened to in high school. And when I was writing the song, it just somehow worked that the hook and like the final, part of the chorus landed on, oh my gosh, Senses Fail. And that was the band that I was listening to during this situation that I'm writing about. And it was like this weird, like total emo, like dramatic moment, but full circle.
That's awesome. I find it great that, you go from pop to rock and then you're in country. It's a really fun journey that you were able to sort of hit all the different areas. And I want to ask you, sort of based around the music, you did go to university to study education. Now, at that point, it seems like you were pretty focused on doing whatever music you could do to make music a career. So when you went to university, what was it that didn't just make you jump at music and just go full bore into music, but take that little break to get a degree?
So I had actually never planned on going to college. I honestly like really hated school, minus the social part and the sports. I was super into sports.
Right.
But the brains part, no thank you. And so I never planned to go to college. And then I got offered a track scholarship, and it was at a college close to where I grew up. And I thought, I was in the rock band at the time. And so I was still doing shows and writing with them, and working at the School of Rock. So I was still very involved with music.
Oh, okay.
But then, able to have something not as a backup plan. I don't like to call it a backup plan because this is the only plan. But like if a ninja star comes out of the sky and punches me in the throat and I can't sing or something,
Right.
like to
Oh, that's awesome. And so in 2015 was when you started to sort of make the transition to Nashville. Now, when you went there in June of 2015 to start tracking an EP, how did sort of how did you make those connections, and how did it all come about that you wound up traveling there to start recording?
Yeah, I had gone to Nashville and met some people, met a producer, Jim Lightman, and Jay Buchanan, and they had a studio and, had done some research on me over, they couldn't have been MySpace. I don't know why I'm thinking MySpace. There's no way. That was like eons ago. But they found me somewhere and, had me come in and play some of my stuff. And I ended up getting really lucky. I did a Kickstarter to be able to fund that. So I raised, I think, $20,000. And then I was able to get some really good session players like Rich Redman, who plays for Jason Aldean, and Kyle Cook from Matchbox 20. And so it was a really cool experience, especially for being my first like intro to Music City.
Yeah, exactly. And playing with those players, going to record your EP, and sort of the realization that country was the spot for you, not rock, not pop, but it was going to be country. How was that time in Nashville and just getting integrated and realizing that this is where you wanted your career to go?
Yeah, I think actually with that first EP, Love on Repeat, I think I was still kind of trying to figure out what I was going to be. And when I listen back to it, I still love those songs. I'm so proud of that EP, but it's definitely more poppy than what I'm releasing now, I think.
Right.
And I kind of think Nashville and, the time that I spent down on Broadway and then the time on The Voice has kind of made me more country and just made me like really latch onto that and embrace it. And I think it feels more authentic to me too. I mean, but I do love to dance too. So I'm still going to throw some like poppy stuff in there sometimes, but
That's
gotta let
great.
the beat drop sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. And there was a time when you first got to Nashville, you had a quote on your social media: "Thanks, Nashville, for letting my dreams feed me for another night." Now, I love that quote because is that sort of the mindset that you have to have in this career, is sort of day by day, and I made it another day of doing what I love, and now I'm going to look forward to the next day and not, getting too far ahead of yourself in the dreams that you have and what you want to do, but always realizing that for today, I lived my dream.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a tough lifestyle. You have to be grateful for the little things and celebrate those little victories, because big, huge victories like, winning a Grammy or doing the Super Bowl halftime, like those are very rare for a lot of people. And I'm still waiting. So you have to be able to celebrate those little victories, like, a certain number of plays on something, or, views on a video, or, you know, um, it's just really important that you do kind of stay in the moment, because this lifestyle is so up and down. I mean, some days you really are just trying to make enough tips to get out of the parking garage.
Right. And in 2016, June of 2016 was one of the highs that you had in your career. And that's when you had the cover of the Johnny and June song with Woody James that you posted on social media. Now, was that the first time that you sort of felt the power of social media?
Yes, that came out of nowhere. So even back in the in like days, we were trying so hard to make a viral video. And then, nothing ever hit. I think one got like 13,000. We were like, we've made it. But then, years later, Woody and we had been singing Jackson when we'd play at Tootsie's or Rippy's or wherever on Broadway.
Right.
And it would go over really well because Woody sounds, almost exactly like Johnny Cash. He nails it. And he came over one night. We're all just kind of sitting around playing music with our friends on the porch. And we've had a couple drinks, we're a little buzzed, and we're like, you know what? Let's set up the tripod and film Jackson. And it was such bad quality. I had to put it in black and white because it was such low lighting. I was like, this looks like crap to post. It's got to be black and white. And I posted it from my bar stool at Honky Tonk Central on like a Thursday at 2:00. And my phone is just, I'm like, what, like, is something in the background I didn't know about that, like, it was crazy though. I mean, it's something you like cannot recreate. I do not know why why which ones go when they do, but I'm grateful.
And was it because of that video that the opportunity on The Voice came about?
So The Voice actually saw my video of Jolene on my YouTube channel, and they said, we're still looking for our female country princess for the season. They kind of know what slots they're still needing to fill for each season. And they said, if you can be to LA in 2 days, which I was in Minnesota. I'm always in Minnesota, it sounds like. I was on vacation in Minnesota, and we ended up having to drive me 2 hours to Minneapolis to fly to LAX. And it was a crazy, crazy ordeal.
So did that give you confidence going in the fact that they contacted you? It wasn't that you went to try out and stood in line for hours. They actually reached out to you. Did that give you confidence going into the auditions?
It definitely did. And I had tried out a number of times for all the shows. And, each time I would get like one round farther before I'd get, the old wristband snip. And I had kind of written them off. I was like, I just don't think I'm, vibrant enough when I walk in there, and maybe that's just not the route for me. And right when I had kind of written it off was when they called me, and that's pretty crazy how that all went down.
How did that help you grow as an artist? What did you learn on that show that you've taken with you throughout the last few years of your career?
I think a lot of the main things that I learned were things that had to do with like branding and marketing yourself. And I took a lot from the fashion and the wardrobe ladies, and hair and makeup, just all the training that they give you behind the scenes, like the choreography that I didn't know that was a thing when you're not actually doing dance moves, but you have marks you're going to go and hit. And I just thought all that, just getting to learn that behind the scenes was so cool. And one of the biggest things that I took away were the vocal lessons that you get behind the scenes. And I still, to this day, use my vocal warm up that Tamara Beatty, who was my coach on the show, that she let me have. And it was a game changer for me.
That's awesome. And over the last few years since then, you've really hit it hard with the live performance, and you perform a lot. And so how important has that been for you to take that opportunity and be able to push forward really hard and be sure that you get out there and continue to have your name out there, and not sort of sit back and wait for the opportunities to come to you because of that one opportunity?
Right. Well, I think looking back on 2020 is a good way to keep the fire under you now. We have been so busy because we're so paranoid that it can all be taken away again. And so we have been yes people all year, and it's kind of made our traveling crazy. Like we just went from Kansas City to Wisconsin, back to Kansas City, and then we just did Chicago, and now we go to Arizona next. And it's just, we're all over the place, but we're just, yes. Anywhere we can play.
That's awesome. And your new single is Census Fail. And you also have Namaste. And those were both produced by Mark, David, and Justin. Now, are those part of a bigger group of music that you produced with them as well, that we might see in an EP or an album?
Yeah, that is the goal. I am hoping to release a bigger work, type of work. We'll figure that out, EP or album, in 2022. That's crazy to say.
Yeah, I know, hey.
It's going to be another year. It's crazy.
And with Census Fail and The Money, those are two songs that you released that you wrote on your own. So over the last couple of years, what has the writing process looked like for you?
It's been kind of a lot of writing by myself, just, with the whole pandemic and everything. I've been writing a lot by myself, and I love to write by myself, but there's also something, that you can't get by yourself with, writing with other people. I would not have come up with all of the lines in Namaste without my buddies Zach and Michelle. And Zach is actually my guitar player in my band, and he also produced Poor Angel, and then also Winter Wonderland that I just released.
Right.
It was fun to get to write with friends, and people that you really vibe with. I think that's how you get the best material is just having that good vibe where you can like just let everything out and be weird, and that's how the good stuff sticks.
Yeah, exactly. And you do a lot of charity work. How important is that for you to use your platform to help others?
Yeah. Kids and animals are my big one. I am just a huge advocate for, being the microphone for people who don't have a voice themselves. So anything with children's welfare, animal rescue is my big end all be all. And so, yeah, anytime anybody asks if I am around and I can make it happen, I'll make it happen.
And over the years, you've talked about sort of your self-confidence. I saw in 2017, after The Voice, you had a post about really taking control of your self-confidence. And within this career that you can be so judged about, you can be judged on your looks, your music, really anything, because you're putting yourself out there. What has that journey been like for you in gaining that self-confidence and really being able to take it forward day to day?
Yeah, that's something that I have to constantly remind myself about, and to just, always be mindful of, not scrolling Instagram for too long, because you get into the comparison game, and, they say comparison is the thief of joy. And, but I'm definitely guilty of that sometimes. I made another post about this, was, I had one of the coolest shows ever. I surprised a bunch of kids at my old elementary school, and they're all crying, and I'm crying tears of joy. It's amazing. They made me feel so cool. I go home, I look at Instagram for 1 second, and I'm about to have a mental breakdown because somebody else got a bunch of likes. I'm like, what is that? That's so dumb. And so it's a constant battle all the time when you are putting everything out there and you're expecting everyone to like you back, which is not possible. For you're not going to be everybody's cup of tea. So it's something you always have to remind yourself of.
And you do put yourself out there quite a bit on social media. You're involved in really letting people know about your life. And so how much of a balance is that in these days? You almost have to create that content, right? It's a part of the game now, is how many followers you have. And so what kind of balance is that in creating that content so you do get the followers, but not getting stuck in that trap of every day, I have to create content, I have to create content, I have to create content?
Right. That is another thing I really struggle with is, I'll be gung ho, and, it helps if my plans are already exciting. Like if I get to sing at the Chiefs game, then it's like, woo, I got some content for that day. But on days where like, I do not want to put on makeup and I do not want to change my sweatpants, and well, like right now I'm in my pajama pants, it is hard. And it's hard to not feel like you're losing a whole entire day of being relevant on social media. But that is a good way to have burnout. If you don't give yourself some days to like have some privacy, and, sometimes it's okay to make tacos and not document every step of it. And I do feel guilty about it, but sometimes I want to make my tacos alone.
Yeah, it's kind of like if you make a taco and don't post it, did you really make a taco?
Right. Well, and so I'm always like, I got to post real quick so grandma doesn't think I'm dead. Because if I don't post to my story, she's texting my mom, is Cass okay?
Thank you once again so much for listening, and thank you to Casi for stopping by and sharing her story. Be sure to check out her new singles, Census Fail and Winter Wonderland, wherever you stream your music. Please also be sure to like, share, follow, subscribe to us wherever you are listening, and please come back each and every week for new and exciting episodes with your favorite country music artists. Thanks once again for listening, and we'll see you next time on Country Music Made Me.